Hey there YouTube, welcome back to the channel. I am super excited to be back today chatting with you all about a really important topic that's been popping up around my office. It's usually very common that it pops up around holistic type practices this time of year. As soon as spring rolls around, everybody's talking about the almighty spring detox. A lot of questions like, hey doc, what do you think about this new detox that I heard about? Or should I be doing a detox? I heard a lot about it. What do you think? So I wanted to see if I could cover some of those topics because if I'm getting the questions here, I'm sure a lot of you having those questions at home as well. And I want to see if I could flesh out some of the basic understanding of what a detox actually is. And I want to talk about a more gentle one that you may be able to do at home called a natural home detox. So stay tuned and watch the whole video all the way to the end because I'm going to be talking about some really important topics all the way through. Now, for those of you that are new here, I am Dr. Nelson. I am a licensed naturopathic physician here in the state of Connecticut, and I'm also a clinical nutrition professor where I teach some nutrition students about nutritional and clinical biochemistry. So some of that will kind of flow into this video today. I'll talk about some heavier things, more detailed sciences, but I really want to talk about those because I think they explain how things work. And if you're able to understand how things are working, then you're able to better have a gauge of what's going on with your body and how to make it work better. So before, we're going to just jump right in. And the most important thing that we need to first understand when we talk about detox is there are two types of detox. The first one, when you talk about detoxification, is usually, especially in Western medicine, is when you're talking about detoxification from drugs and alcohol. Usually those are like different types of systems that you're working within to eliminate those heavy-duty drugs. Again, alcohol being one of the main ones, but some other recreational drugs are used to detoxify or able to detoxify from those recreational drugs at various facilities. And then we have the other side of detoxification that we're usually talking about, at least in the holistic and wellness space, where we're talking about basically elimination of certain toxins from the environment, be they internal toxins or external toxins, through a various series of systems that occur through your liver, which we'll be talking about some of those today. So detoxification is really important, but the most important thing to note is that your liver is always functional. For the most part, unless you have some medical condition, which you would know about beforehand, or usually you would work that out with your healthcare provider, your liver is one of its primary jobs is to detoxify chemicals, compounds, hormones, medications, whether they're man-made or made from nature, to filter them out, eliminate them, and get rid of them through either stool, urine, sweat, or even breathing. So that's pretty much the main goal of your liver. Again, there's other secondary roles, but your liver is really constantly functioning to eliminate those things. Now, where it gets really important is that our society and our world has changed drastically over the years. The amount of industrial compounds and toxins that the adult human is exposed to, the last I've seen, it's somewhere about 700. So if you sample your fat or your muscle tissue and you get an opportunity to see just how many toxins are in your body, most people don't ever really get to see, but usually it's on the scale of about 700 different toxins. And it's so much so that they've even sampled cord blood and newborn babies and seen that they even, just the moment they're born into this world, are exposed to 200 toxins. So they're basically being exposed to the toxins before they're even born, which is really, really pretty serious stuff, and definitely important to understand why we need to make sure that we're able to get our bodies functioning optimally so that they can eliminate these toxins, and again, make sure that your liver is supported to eliminate those things as they come in. So medical researchers are finding that there are a lot of conditions, more than we previously thought, that are actually associated with toxin exposure, from obesity to infertility to cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, even high cholesterol. Many of these conditions are actually linked to toxin exposure, and the more research that we're doing in that is the more that we're finding there's a strong correlation between the amount of toxins in your body, or what we would consider or call the total body burden of toxins, various chemicals, and heavy metals, and some progression and worsening of some overall health outcomes that again could be associated with your body. So the reality of it is that most individuals could benefit from some kind of mindfulness practice with regards to, toxins and chemicals from the environment. The reality of it is your best first line approach is to eliminate the toxins from being ingested and bought into your body. The truth of it is that that's almost impossible in our world today. There are toxins everywhere. The rain, the clouds, the air you breathe, the water you drink, from the food to the food that you eat. So we're going to definitely talk a little bit about this home detox process, and I want to definitely spend some time chatting about it today with you. So you'll see my nice little handy dandy whiteboard. Pretty much the first and most important question for you is, what is the natural home detox program? So what's the natural home detox program? Essentially what you're going to want to do is, whenever you're doing a natural home detox program, is you want to make sure that the foods that you're eating are really good quality foods. So organic foods, non-GMO, grown sustainably. These things are really important and on the top of the list in terms of a natural home detox program, because the quality of the foods that you're ingesting are really going to shift the outcomes to the overall benefit and success of you being able to allow your body to kind of cleanse the toxins that are already in there. Your liver kind of works on a assembly line type system, and so the ability of your body to detoxify and eliminate certain toxins, there's a limit. So once you reach that limit, everything else that comes in needs to wait. And usually where it waits is your body will store it in fat cells so that it can be safely tucked away, because most toxins are fat soluble. Some things can be tucked away in your liver, some things will be tucked away in your brain, and some things will be tucked away in your bones. But for the most part, we're talking about a lot of fat soluble toxins that are holding out in your fat cells because your liver just can't get to it quite yet. And so it's really important to note that, again, the quality of the food is one of the most important things, and you want to make sure that you're really eating good quality foods as you're going through this program. So that means no processed foods, no prepackaged foods, nothing that's easy to just grab and go. It's got to be all whole foods, freshly done, freshly made, freshly gotten. And that will, again, especially with the quality component where we're talking about organic, especially organic where necessary, will really help to shift the tide on what your body is able to actually process. So you want to give the body space to be able to do what it normally does and what it naturally does. Most of us are overwhelmed with toxins, again, with that 700 number floating around somewhere. So your liver is constantly always having to deal with stuff. And even in a perfect environment where there were no toxins, your body would have to deal with toxins on its own, right? So your hormones, they're also toxins. The bacteria that are inside your GI tract, they also produce what we call endotoxins. And so, even the foods that you would eat, polyphenols and nutrients, they all have to be processed by your liver as well. So even in a perfect environment, your liver would still have a job to do on its own. When we start adding in all of the xenobiotics, which are the man-made chemicals that are used for insecticides and herbicides and everything to keep the crops growing, those things start to accumulate over time, and all of the plasticizers, or things that we use to make plastics, and all of those industrial products will end up in the water and end up in the food. And our bodies have to, again, deal with that as well. So we want to eliminate as much as possible from being ingested into our bodies, so that way our bodies can deal with what we already have internally, and that way we can start to cleanse some things out and get rid of some things. So that's the way that I'd like for you all to think about detox pretty much from this point forward. Any products or any systems that promise you that they're going to amplify your detox systems and ramp things up and help to get things out of your body, that's a tricky topic, and I would usually advise individuals to stay away from those types of products. Anything that's going to ramp up or speed up detoxification in any way, shape, or form is going to usually result in more harm than good. I've had some individuals that have popped into my office and they've shown up because they tried to do a detox program on their own, something that they found online with a variety of different supplements. And they came in and they noticed they started getting gray hairs afterwards, or they started developing sickness afterwards where they were nauseous all the time, or maybe had a lot of gastrointestinal problems with constipation, which I'll talk about afterwards as well later on. These things will happen because if you're trying to play with and modulate liver detoxification, when I get into the various phases of liver detox later on in this video, if you're trying to modulate and change those different phases, if you ramp up one phase versus another phase, it can result in some issues where your body is now dealing with more toxins than it needed to that are in a more soluble state that can actually be in your blood rather than your fat tissue. And so I'll talk about that again a little bit more as we get down the road, but don't do anything that's going to ramp anything up. Your goal is to eat clean, nice whole foods, fruits and vegetables of a variety of different sources. Maybe you want to keep your meat intake down. Usually fresh fish, oily fish are typically okay. Again, seafood tends to have some higher exposure to plastics these days, but typically when you're talking about seafood, especially fish, they tend to be lower in the problem scale. Usually a lot of farm animals, especially if you can't attest to the quality and the type of feed that they used for them, may result in some issues with those types of things. So depends on personal preference. Some people like to eliminate meat when they're doing a natural home detox. Others will just use seafood, and some people just eliminate it altogether and almost do like a vegan style approach for a short period of time, and then shift back over to a normal style diet, maybe keeping some of the major components of, again, eating clean and being mindful about what you're eating as you transition and go forward. Up first is what are some of the major benefits of doing a natural home detox program. So I kind of touched on it briefly a little while ago. When you're doing a natural home detox program, what you're going to get is you're going to get real food. You're going to be, you're going to get the understanding and learning about what it is that you're actually ingesting and how those foods actually play a role in the total change and function of your body and exposure to different chemicals. So that's really the most important takeaway of doing a natural type home program, where you're eating all the right foods, you're getting the nutrients that your body needs to do the detox processes that it's been built and created to do, and you're just going to support that process. It's all you're going to do. You're going to support that process with food. And so the benefits of that, again, is improved safety and you learning the importance of how food really makes your body function a little bit better. Some of the bigger things is that you want to make sure that you're avoiding known triggers. So foods that you're already sensitive to and that you know that you're sensitive to them, you want to try and see if you can avoid those. Increased consumption of things that you're sensitive to or known triggers, like some individuals may be sensitive to tomatoes, or some individuals may be sensitive to milk and lactose. If you know that you're sensitive to those things, it's often best to eliminate them, to remove them, and not have them, even outside of these types of detox, home detox type programs. But you want to make sure that you eliminate them, because consistent exposure to things that you're sensitive to will result in an increased inflammation, and you'll have an inflammatory response in your GI tract, which will make it more difficult for your body to process foods, process toxins from the environment, and help to keep a nice healthy microbial balance, which also helps eliminating certain things as well, certain types of toxins. Next most important question is that what is it that you need to do? So what do you need to do in order to make something like this work? Usually the first step to make something like this work is, usually I would recommend actually checking out the environmental working groups. They have their Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So usually I recommend taking a look at that list, because usually the Dirty Dozen foods are typically the foods that you want to eat organic. So when you take a look at that list, usually it changes every year. Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, I'll put the link in the description down below so that way you guys have access to it. They're usually publishing that information every year so that we have a good idea of some of those foods that they don't change much, but sometimes the foods will change on that list. And so if there's a food on that Dirty Dozen, you want to make sure that you're not having that, at least in a non-organic form. And then the Clean 15, usually those foods tend to be cleaner than the other ones and don't have as much toxin exposure. And so they're okay to eat as basically non-organic if possible. Usually, again, while you're doing this type of a program, a natural home detox, you want to make sure that you're eating as much organic as possible, eating it as clean as possible, and really being mindful again about what you're putting in your body. One of the big things that you also want to keep in mind is the quality of the food that you're ingesting. So old foods are problematic. So if you're eating something that, is visibly a bruise, or it looks like it's starting to go a little bit, a fruit or a vegetable, sometimes people will try and, they may just eat it, not really paying too much attention to it. Those are actually usually when a fruit or vegetable starts to go. Either it's a bacterial product that's actually happening, so the bacteria is working on that, or it's a fungal product or a product of fungal activity that's starting to create a breakdown process of that fruit or vegetable. So under most cases, you're okay. It wouldn't really cause too many problems. In a body that's sensitive to it, fungal products, fungal exposure, or fungal toxins may actually result in a lot of problems. Fungal toxins are actually one of the higher on the list of toxins that can cause a lot of detriment to your overall health. There are some known carcinogens that actually come from fungal spores, one of them being really common in the laboratory space, but aflatoxin B1. Again, that's a known carcinogen. Usually you can see them, that particular fungus you'll find on the peanut or the nut that tastes bad, so the bad nut. Usually if you have one of those, you should spit it out. Don't just chew it up. Usually it means that there's probably some aflatoxin on there, and you don't want to be ingesting that because, again, that's more for your liver to do, and you don't want to be doing that during a detox program. So any food that looks like it's going, food that's suspicious, even things that you've made before and maybe put in the fridge, if it checks off all the things on the check boxes that it's organic and it's clean and it was fresh when you made it, 3 or 4 days later, it's probably starting to get some bacterial or microbial action. You want to get rid of it because, again, it's going to be more toxin exposure, whether it be bacterial or fungal. Another thing that you're going to want to do during this time frame is liver protection. You want to really focus on liver protection. One of the best herbs that usually I'll recommend, because it's usually very, very safe in most individuals, is milk thistle. Milk thistle is usually, the way that I describe it, like a soft, warm blanket for your liver. Milk thistle doesn't ramp anything up. It doesn't speed anything up or slow anything down. Milk thistle just protects your liver so that it can do the job that it's basically been drafted to do and do it well. And so doing things like milk thistle to protect your liver as a liver protectant will help, primarily because milk thistle functions as a major reactive oxygen species quencher. So it's a potent antioxidant that has a lot of effect in the liver. And you want to have a lot of antioxidant ingestion during your natural home detox programs because, especially during phase one of liver detoxification produces tons of reactive oxygen species, which are very damaging to cells and DNA. Before we talk about the specifics of liver detoxification, one of the things that I would like to talk about is some of the common mistakes of a natural home detox program. So some of the more common mistakes of a natural home detox program usually falls in the category of one or two things, and they do overlap quite a bit. One of the most important, and one of the first things that I usually see is individuals not staying hydrated enough, not drinking enough water. And that kind of combos in with the other most common thing that I'll see happen very often is individuals not having enough fiber or actually getting constipated while doing a detoxification or any type of mindful detoxification program, whether it's a gentle one or you're using different supplements. Staying hydrated actually helps to keep your bowels moving properly, and the last thing you want to do during a detoxification program is get constipated, because the toxins that your body actually works on during those different phases, phase 1 and phase 2, they have to be eliminated. So whether it's via urination or defecation, sometimes you'll even remove some of them through your sweat. And again, I mentioned breathing as well as some of the possible ways of eliminating certain toxins. Your body will use any organ necessary to just get rid of those various toxins after they've been detoxified via the liver. Most common excretion points are urination and defecation. So if you're constipated or you can't go, it's going to be a problem, because what's going to happen is that those toxins that are now more readily available to be absorbed because they're water soluble, they're actually sitting in your intestines and they're being worked upon by various microbes. Now, one of the most classic cases of this that I've seen, and I've seen it quite a bit, is a microbe called E. coli. Most people are familiar with E. coli. Now, E. coli actually produces an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, and that beta-glucuronidase enzyme actually is able to undo one of the actual points of liver detoxification. So as we talk about phase 2 detoxification, I won't talk about all the specific ones, but one of the phase 2 detoxification points or products is it's called glucuronidation. And so you literally take a glucuronide molecule and you enzymatically attach it to the toxins from phase one, and now your body is able to get rid of it a little bit easier. Glucuronidation typically works on hormones, it works on drugs, mostly xenobiotics, things that we're used to seeing in the environment that are usually man-made. Sulfation also does that, which is another step in phase two. But glucuronidation is one of the first ones. It'll be the bigger catch, and it'll work really well on detoxification. So as you produce those detoxification products and put them into your intestines, and if you have an imbalance of E. coli or a high level of E. coli in your GI tract, now they're going to be putting out tons and tons of beta glucuronidase, and now you're constipated. That beta glucuronidase is going to undo that detoxification that your liver just did. It's going to be sitting in your GI tract. It's going to be sitting in your colon. And high levels of beta glucuronidase are actually a link or a risk factor for developing colon cancer. And this is one of the reasons why. Because now you have direct carcinogenic compounds, which are toxins, sitting in your colon, expressing those the reactive oxygen species directly on those cells, causing DNA damage, and ultimately resulting in carcinogenic activity occurring at that location. And again, that can happen for a wide variety of different cells. This is just one example of what can happen when you're constipated, resulting in some issues. And this is usually where most people make the mistake when they're doing any type of detoxification program on their own. They're usually constipated before, they don't even realize it. They may be going once a day or every other day, or maybe every other day, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Usually that's not enough. You want to make sure that your bowels are optimally functioning, maybe 1 to 2 bowel movements per day. You can go more. Typically, what I usually say to people, it can be healthy to go for every meal that you eat. So some people can go up to 3 times per day. Ideally, you should be doing at least 1 per day. That way you know that you're properly eliminating, and it's usually a good sign that you are doing better than probably someone who's only going once a week. That's usually a bad sign. No home detoxes for you. It's going to be frowned upon. You want to get those bowels working optimally first. Okay, so that's usually kind of the bigger things. Again, with staying hydrated, hydration is going to help to keep the system flowing. It's going to help to keep the cardiovascular system flowing. It's going to keep your kidneys functioning optimally, so that again, you can eliminate those toxins and you can get rid of them. It's also, as I'm talking about this, another thing comes to mind is another thing that you can do typically while you're doing some of these types of programs as well, is to make use of all of the other organs of elimination. So they call them the emunctories in the old time. You can make use of those other organs. So what are some other ways that you can detoxify? Exercise. As you break down fats, remember we talked about fat soluble toxins. So you got toxins hanging out in your fat cells. As you start to mobilize those fats and break them down, you'll eliminate them and you'll actually free them back into the body. You want to be careful though. So if you're a highly toxic person, not in the emotional sense, but if you have a lot of toxins floating around in your body and you're breaking down tons and tons of fats where those toxins are actually stored, you may feel really sick while you're starting this process, especially if your liver isn't caught up to speed yet or has all of those effective nutrients that you need, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals to make sure that these processes can actually happen. Then you may actually feel really sick afterwards. But if you're in a healthy enough state, you've started doing your detox, you started eating good, you're eating clean, you've eliminated most of the exposures from the environment, doing some more increased physical activity to really get a sweat and break down fat cells may be super beneficial. And then another way that you can increase detoxification capacities, I didn't really plan on talking about it too much today, but the far infrared saunas pretty much work in a similar way. It's going to stimulate those fat cells. It's going to help to break them down. And as you sweat, those toxins are going to come out through the skin because the sebum that is actually located within the sweat glands, you do have some oil secretions that come out as well. So you'll get some fat soluble toxins that'll get secreted from those sweat glands as well, which is really important. So that you want to make sure that if you're doing an exercise program to sweat specifically for the goal of detoxification, or you're using a far infrared sauna, you want to make sure that you go and you wash that skin with soap and water after the fact. Don't wait till you get home. Don't let the sweat dry on your skin after the fact. You want to make sure you hit that with some soap and water right away, because otherwise what you'll do is when it dries, if it stays too long, it'll get reabsorbed, it'll get pulled right back into your body, and it'll go right back where you left it. So pretty much the minute you're done or the second you're done, you want to go, soap and water, get that off, get those oils off your body and get those toxins washed away with it. And that's a good way to kind of again, speed up this process and get things moving forward. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, I wanted to spend a little bit of time explaining pretty much the phases of liver detoxification. I mentioned it before, toxins come in, your body deals with them, toxins go out, and then the cycle kind of repeats itself. So typically what's happening with most of the toxins as you're exposed to them in your body is that most of the toxins are fat soluble toxins. They'll get drawn into your body, and then they'll get drawn into your body and sent to your liver, where they'll be processed through something called phase 1 detoxification. In order to get phase 1 detoxification functioning optimally, you need vitamins, you need minerals, and you need antioxidants. If you drive vitamin mineral supplementation too high, especially in the right combination, you can amplify phase 1 detoxification, which will actually produce intermediate toxins that are partially more soluble than their original form. Again, remember, fat soluble, if you remember anything about basic chemistry and biology, is that fats typically don't like water. So fats are what we call hydrophobic. So they don't like water, and most of our body is water. Our blood is water, and things don't just stay where they don't belong. So if you have a fat soluble toxin, it may enter into your body, but typically it's going to get stored and sequestered away in fat cells because that's where it feels the most comfortable. But as it gets pulled through phase 1, it's going to actually become more water soluble. And part of the process of phase 1 is to make it more water soluble so that your body can put it in the urine or in the stool so that it can be eliminated. So you do typically need these vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants to make sure that the system is functioning optimally. But as you're working through this natural home detox process where you're eating all the foods, you're eating the variety of different colors of fruits and vegetables, you're eating all the superfoods that are packed full of antioxidants, you're getting all those things from the food. You don't need to do anything specific to ramp it up. So you don't need to take any specific supplements or anything like that to speed up the process, because it's only going to cause an increased production of phase 1 products, which are going to result in an increased toxic buildup. So you may get sicker if you try and speed this process up by shortcutting it. You want to do it the right way, you want to do it gently, and you want to do it slowly. Speed things up too fast, you end up bottlenecking the problem, where you create a lot of intermediate toxins that are more water soluble, and then if you have a slow phase 2 system that can't quite keep up with it, now again, you're going to have these floating around in your body, causing tons and tons of damage, tons and tons of problem, and then you're going to have to deal with that after the fact again, which again, it's better to just do it the right way. So once you create these intermediates, the next phase of liver detoxification is phase 2. Typically, this requires amino acids, because this is where your body is going to use a lot of different amino acids, whether they be sulfur-rich amino acids or methyl-rich amino acids, to really bind to these partially water-soluble components to make them more water-soluble so that your body can basically make it into junk where it can be excreted or eliminated via the methods that we mentioned before: stool, urine, sweat through skin, excretion through the lungs. And so that's pretty much the main cycle of how you do liver detoxification. If you're trying to do anything, again, specifically to shortcut it, you're going to result in a problem where you build up more toxins, and you don't necessarily want to do it that way. You want to do it nice and gentle with food, because you won't have any problems when you're trying to just eat clean, when you're eliminating processed foods. And, again, if you were going to consider using any type of actual supplement, maybe doing milk thistle will help to, again, protect the liver like a nice warm blanket so that it can do the job that it was created to do. So if you're doing things through food, you're pretty much going to have a hard time going wrong with that. It's going to usually work out pretty good. I would always recommend, before anyone do anything or try anything like this, make sure you speak with your healthcare provider first, because remember, I'm not your doctor. I'm just giving you some medical information so that way you can make the best informed decisions with you and your healthcare provider. But definitely work with that doctor. Make sure that they do some basic tests for you to ensure that your liver is functioning optimally. You don't want to try and run a detox program if your liver actually can't even handle it. If you're having signs of liver issues or developing hepatitis or any of those kinds of issues, you want to stay far, far away from any liver detoxification programs, even a gentle home detox one. You don't want to even think about that. So I hope that you were able to learn something from this video today. Thank you so much for spending time with me and going all the way down to the end and watching all the way here. If this video was helpful for you, definitely subscribe to the channel. I really look forward to seeing you all and helping to continue to educate you about how to do natural medicine and holistic medicine in a safe way and keep you and your family safe. So like the video, subscribe to the channel. I really look forward to seeing you guys in the future, okay? Thank you so much. Take care.